And Don's trying to make this about me. I am a commissioned leader and I'm not sinning. And Don has sinned in a grave manner against Jesus Christ, against the body of Christ. And we removed his leadership a year ago. There was a formal decision made and his leadership was removed from the body of Christ. He's not a leader. He has no authority. He has no say as a leader. He is not in the body of Christ. He's joined himself with a demon. And the more that you continue to go to his group and you listen to this, the more you will be deceived by all of his lies and the seductions and everything else that happens. That's why these videos are being made. The blood of these people are on your hands as well. You should be ashamed for calling yourself sinless and righteous when you're not. I wish that you would be. But you are not, because you see what's happening and you refuse to do anything about it. You can't handle it. You can't handle the truth. You do not love truth. You love a strong delusion. The lying demon. Saying that you're righteous doesn't make you righteous. You have to do what is right. 1 John 3:7. Dear children, listen carefully. Do not be deceived. Whenever you hear that warning, you'd better listen carefully because they're telling you how men will try to deceive you. Dear children, do not be deceived. He who does what is right is righteous, just as Jesus is righteous. Don Smith is not doing what is right. He is claiming to be righteous while sinning. And he says that, oh, I can gossip because I'm righteous. John says you're a liar. John says you're a deceiver. So here I am again today, and we're going to talk about Don Smith a little bit, but from a different angle this time. Now, we've been covering a comparison between Warren Jeffs and the FLDS cult to Don Smith and his budding cult status. He is developing a cult right now in Louisiana as we speak, and he's prohibiting people from reading and watching and listening to certain materials, and also trying to control how they behave in their own private lives. And he's also literally breaking up the marriages. So, and it's on purpose. He overtly says that if the man will not come to the group, then he's a sinner and he's lost and he's unclean, and you're not to have sex with him, and you're not to be with him, and you're to stay in my group. And then he pretended to prophesy because he can't prophesy from God. Because as I showed at the beginning of all this, this is what started all of it, is that he fornicated with a lying demon. And it's absolutely clear. This is probably the clearest case. There are two of them that are equally clear, his and another person. So this is a problem. And he prophesied as if he were Jesus, telling these wives that he told to leave their husbands and to stay in his group and to disobey. He openly said to disobey their husbands. And he said, you are my wives. That's what he says. And you'll see that in one of the videos, 2 or 3 of the videos. I've played it over and over again, so you can hear it there. He also said that something happened and it cost him his soul. He later then, once that was drawn attention to, and that was like a month after that video was made, that I found out about it. I heard this and I drew attention to it and said, listen, you're following someone who said he lost his soul. And then he backpedaled. He says, no, I didn't say, it cost me my salt. He completely made that up. And then he made a video teaching on the Sunday after that, where he, for the first time in his life, used this phrase, don't let it cost you your salt. So that he could then say, oh, see, I'm already teaching on this, but it's after the fact. Not only that, if it cost him his salt, well, Jesus said, you are the salt, not you have the salt. You are the salt of the earth. And what happens if it costs you your salt? Jesus says you are good for nothing, only to be thrown out under the feet of men and to be trampled underfoot. That's very harsh. Sounds to me like the same thing as losing your soul. So there's no difference between the two. But now, what is Don doing? Don is now attacking me. Well, he did that at the beginning too, when I first started investigating his vision that he presented to me. He didn't present it to me, he presented it to everyone, but he happened to give me a link, and God caused him to do it because Don knows I'm going to investigate. As I investigated and I brought it to him that this is not just an error, it's a spiritual error that's been inspired by a lying spirit. Oh, he lashed out at me, started attacking me, and made it about me. And it's not about me, it's about him. Because in this case, Don has fornicated and joined himself to a demon. And now that seducing spirit is seducing the others. I mean, literally seducing them in sensuality. To think that they are joined. Each one of them are individually the bride of Christ. It's not what the scriptures say at all. That we all together are the church, which is the bride of Christ. The Song of Solomon, when we talk about it being Jesus and his bride, it's the church. It's not individuals. You don't put yourself in that story. That's not how it works. When you do that, you go into error, doctrinal error. And Paul says you got to watch your doctrine so that you'll save yourselves and your hearers. That means if you don't, then you can lose your soul. You can be damned to hell and then to the lake of burning sulfur if you're not careful about your doctrine. All right, back to this. He's tried to make it about me by talking about my personal matters. Now, I've not said, this is false, this is true. I'm not addressing that because it's not about me. It is about Don Smith. And the fact that he was willing to gossip and tell strangers, people I don't know, and I never gave him permission to talk about my private things with him. And yet he's, at least pretending to talk about my private things. He's saying things that are private matters, and the ones that are not true are slander. And if it's true, it's still gossip. Either way you look at it, it is sin. Don Smith is sinning. Hear me clearly. Don Smith is sinning. Saying that you're righteous doesn't make you righteous. You have to do what is right. 1 John 3:7. Dear children, listen carefully. Do not be deceived. Whenever you hear that warning, you'd better listen carefully because they're telling you how men will try to deceive you. Dear children, do not be deceived. He who does what is right is righteous, just as Jesus is righteous. Don Smith is not doing what is right. He is claiming to be righteous while sinning. And he says that, I can gossip because I'm righteous. John says you're a liar. John says you're a deceiver. And he says in the previous chapter, who's the deceiver except the Antichrist? And I've already said this was an Antichrist spirit sent out by the Antichrist. Go watch this video because it's not what you think. The Antichrist is not what you think. This is a full study in the Greek of every occurrence of Antichrist in the Bible. Go watch it, or you will remain ignorant as most other people are about this issue. Don was deceived by an Antichrist spirit whose purpose is to turn Christians into false prophets by pretending to be Christ or God or a messenger from God and giving a message from God to them that is not from God but from a demon. And they think that this is God who's giving it to them. And Don Smith himself said, in the dream, there was an old man and he knew instantly it was God. And he embraced him and said something to the effect of, well done, my son. And Don broke into tears. And he, on the video, he's just about crying. And he's saying, I always wanted to hear this all my life. This was the deepest thing, the one thing that he longed for all his life. Well, gosh, if I were the enemy in the form of a spirit, How would I deceive Don then? If that were the thing that he wanted to hear all his life, well, give him a dream. And pretend to be God in the form of an old man and tell him what he wants to hear. Remember what Paul says, they will gather around themselves teachers to tell them what their itching ears want to hear. That's what Don has done with his spirit, though, an evil spirit. And Don's trying to make this about me. I am a commissioned leader and I'm not sinning. And Don has sinned in a grave manner against Jesus Christ, against the body of Christ. And we removed his leadership a year ago. There was a formal decision made and his leadership was removed from the body of Christ. He's not a leader. He has no authority. He has no say as a leader. He is not in the body of Christ. He's joined himself with a demon. And the more that you continue to go to his group and you listen to this, the more you will be deceived by all of his lies and the seductions and everything else that happens. That's why these videos are being made. I didn't choose to make these videos. God put them in my lap. He put this in my lap through miraculous events. I've told some of them in the videos, and it is absolutely amazing. You would be wise to listen. You would be even wiser to leave his group. This is not about me. I am a leader in good standing. I am a leader who is faithful. I am a leader who has given up his life and stayed here in Ukraine, even after the invasion. And I've been helping. I'm giving everything I have to help and to preach the gospel now. So, you'll be wise to listen. There's no question that Don is sinning. He's been caught red-handed sinning. Did he not speak about my private matters? He did. If you're in his group, you know that. Did he not try to break up the marriages of husbands and wives when Paul says that if one is clean, the other's unclean? That the one who's clean sanctifies the unbeliever. And Don is telling them not to have sex because the spouse is unclean. It's exact contradiction to exactly what is said in the Bible. The Bible clearly says the believer sanctifies the unbeliever and never tells him to stop having sex. In fact, Paul, when he's talking about a married couple, whether believers, unbelievers, mixed believer, unbeliever, doesn't matter. He's saying, do not deprive each other of sex, except for a time for prayer, but come back together so that Satan doesn't tempt you. And you make your unbelieving spouse sanctified. He says, otherwise your children would be unclean. So he makes even an argument from it. Don is not just in error. He's teaching from the voice of demons, directly contradicting God, calling God a liar. You'd better get out of that group. If you want to talk to me about, well, what am I going to do if I leave? Then write to me at ron.craig at therootedword.com. And I'd be glad to write back and have a conversation with you about that. Either way, you've got to get out of that group. And if you don't get out of that group, you have only yourself to blame. These videos are rife with concrete proof. And it's from Don's own videos. And if you think that I've doctored his videos when I include a clip, the link to the original on his channel is in the description down below. And it goes directly to the spot in his video on his YouTube channel of where he says it. There's no doctoring. And if you still disbelieve, well then, you are perishing. and you will perish because you refuse the love of the truth and you believe a strong delusion because you love unrighteousness. And I know that Don is couching all of this in this narrative that everyone in his group are righteous and everyone outside are unrighteous, but it's not true. And I've proven it by proving that Don Smith himself is completely unrighteous. He's completely unrighteous. And he's building his own kingdom, not Jesus's. He's building his own kingdom by saying there's nowhere else you can go except here to his house. Haven't you thought about that? Why in the world would he say there's nowhere else to go except his house? Oh, because all the others are apostate. He can't know that, and you can't either. So why would someone say that then? He can't know that every single church everywhere in the world is apostate, except his. But that's what he says. And so when he's out preaching, and when you're out preaching, you're supposed to point people to come to the group at the house to build Don's kingdom. It's not the kingdom of Christ, because the kingdom of Christ is not led by a liar, a gossip, a fornicator of evil spirits, an opposer of God, someone who calls God a liar. You really want to sit under that kind of person? You really want to sit under someone who calls God a liar? And if you justify him by saying, oh, he's not calling God a liar, then you deserve what you get. I have patiently been trying to help you leave. And you justify this man right and left. When the evidence is concrete, there are no ifs, ands, or buts. You heard it. You've seen it. And then he's got Bridget as his right-hand woman. He's married, but he's got Bridget. Yeah, go figure that one out. Or he'll sit on the phone with women all day long, and they will not even talk to their husband. That is disgusting. That's vile. And this Bridget whispers in the ear of the wives, be faithful to Don, be faithful to Don, be faithful to Don. Your husband is evil, your husband is evil, be faithful to Don. And she keeps repeating this, and she keeps repeating this, whispering this in the ear of the wives over and over again. You know it's true. You know that's what's happening because you're there. And the fact that you know these things are happening and you've done nothing about it, the blood of these people are on your hands as well. You should be ashamed for calling yourself sinless and righteous when you're not. I wish that you would be. But you are not, because you see what's happening and you refuse to do anything about it. And then these videos come out and you don't even listen to the whole thing. I doubt you're even listening right now. That's right. You can't handle it. You can't handle the truth. You do not love truth. You love a strong delusion that a lying demon is seducing you into. And you say that you love Jesus. What Jesus? What Jesus? It's not the Jesus of the Bible. You don't love the Jesus of the Bible because every word in the Bible comes through Jesus. You know that? And when you agree to oppose what is spoken of in the Bible clearly for you, you are not loving the Jesus who's testified to in the Bible. You are loving an idol that has been set up by a lying demon who's being channeled by Don Smith. Contorted face. Watch him. Watch him. When he goes into the trance and he starts prophesying, or when he gets angry and he starts yelling even with his eyes open, watch his face. Go back and watch his videos and slow them down and watch his face. His bone structure becomes contorted. You cannot do that as a human being, only if you are demon possessed. You do not have the strength to do that. You better leave.